I start? Karen, should I start? 10 o'clock. Okay. Good morning. My name is Kay Simpson, and I'm the president of the Springfield Museums. And it's my honor to welcome you to the Springfield Museums and National Portrait Gallery's first ever hybrid press conference. We are pleased to have so many people joining us both on site and online. Today's event is being presented as part of the museum's 3-year partnership with the Smithsonian Institution, which is so generously funded by the MassMutual Foundation. As part of this 3-year collaboration, the Springfield Museums are able to offer exhibitions and programs that deepen and enhance our offerings. We are proud to be the New England premiere of the Outwin American Portraiture Today exhibition from the National Portrait Gallery, and we are grateful to the MassMutual Foundation for making it possible for us to present this outstanding work in our museum galleries. I'd like to officially open this press conference with a land acknowledgement, which I will now read. We want to acknowledge that we gather as the Springfield Museums on the traditional land of the Indian peoples, including the Agawam and Nonotuck indigenous peoples, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have continued to steward the land throughout the generations. At this point, I would like to now introduce Heather Haskell, Director of the Art Museums and our Vice President. Heather and her staff have installed this exhibition and have also curated a complimentary exhibition entitled This Is Us, Regional Portraiture Today, which will open later this month. Please welcome Heather to our press conference.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see you here, and thank you for joining us today on this very special occasion. The Springfield Museums are thrilled and honored to serve as the first venue for this extraordinary exhibition, the Outwin American Portraiture Today. The show, organized by the National Portrait Gallery, features the finalists of its 5th triennial Outwin Boochever Portrait Competition. Every 3 years, artists living and working in the United States and Puerto Rico are invited to submit one of their recent portraits to a panel of experts chosen by the Portrait Gallery. In 2019, over 2,600 entries were received through this open call, with nearly 50 works selected for inclusion in this show. The variety of media on display is impressive, with painting, drawing, sculpture, photography, video, and performance art, exemplifying the compelling and diverse approaches of today's artists to express the American story. The exhibition features works from artists living in 14 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. We would like to extend our warm thanks to Health New England and Freedom Credit Union for helping to underwrite the display of this important exhibition in Springfield, and a very special thanks to MassMutual, our seasoned supporter. The question and answer is available to all of our virtual attendees if you would like to ask a question at any time during this conference. We will not address the questions until at the end of the presentation, but we'll certainly do so at this time. And I would also like to remind everyone that this is being recorded. As you will see when you view the works on display, the artist masterfully responded to the National Portrait Gallery's request for artwork related to the current political and social context themes. Works included in the exhibition address some of the country's most pressing issues, including immigration, Black Lives Matter, the status of the American worker, gun violence, and LGBTQ rights. Included in the exhibition is the work of the competition's first prize winner, Hugo Crossweight, a resident of San Diego and the first Latinx artist to receive the prestigious award since the national competition was founded in 2006. I am pleased that Mr. Crossweight, as well as the co-curator of the Outwin, Taína Caragol, have been able to join us today and will provide more information on the show, as well as the first prize winning artwork, a stop-motion drawing animation titled Portraits of Berenice Sarmiento Chavez, which was created in 2018. Taína Caragol is the curator of painting and sculpture and Latino art and history at the National Portrait Gallery, and she was the co-curator of this show. Ms. Caragol joined the National Portrait Gallery in 2013 as the first curator for Latino art and history, and in 2015, her role was expanded to curator of painting and sculpture. She has led the effort to increase the representation of Latino historical figures and artists at the museum, adding over 170 portraits to the collection, and ensuring that Latino contributions to American history and art are interwoven through the museum's exhibitions and permanent collection. She is currently serving as the exhibition director and the co-curator of the next iteration of this show, the Outwin 2022 American Portraiture Today. Hugo Crossweight was born in Tijuana and grew up in Baja, California. He graduated from San Diego University in 1997 with a bachelor's degree in applied arts and sciences. The artist often uses pencil or charcoal to focus on his figures, working in a linear fashion and creating drawings with extraordinary detail. All of his work is created with improvisation, developing as he draws. Crosswade's first prize winning stop motion drawing animation, which is actually all right in back of all of you, recounts a woman's journey from Tijuana, Mexico to the United States in pursuit of the American dream. To give us more information on the organization of the exhibition, as well as on the creation of this first prize winning drawing, I would like to now turn the podium to Taína Caragol, who is joining us from the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Heather. I would love to be there in person, but I am happy to be sharing this moment with you via Zoom at least. Before starting, I would like to acknowledge that this morning I am speaking to you from Washington, D.C., where the National Portrait Gallery and most of the Smithsonian Museums are located, on the lands, the native lands of the Piscataway, Pamunkey, Nacotchtank, and their descendants. Our respect and gratitude to them for the opportunity to work on this land. My colleagues and I at the Portrait Gallery are thrilled to be launching with you the tour of the Outwin American Portraiture Today at the Damour Museum of the Springfield Museums. On behalf of Dorothy Moss, director of the Outwin Boochever Portrait Competition, and of myself, co-curator with her of this exhibition, we want to express a heartfelt thanks to Kay Simpson, President and CEO of the Springfield Museums, and to Heather Haskell, Vice President and Director of the Art Museums and the Springfield Museums, for hosting our triennial exhibition. This is one of our favorite shows to share because of the broad range of artists it represents from around the country and the urgent themes they put forward through their work. I would also like to thank Maggie North, Karen Fisk, Paige Moreau, the team who organized this event, the team who installed the show, and the guards and maintenance staff that keep the museum open and safe so that people can enjoy the artwork even during this health crisis. A big thanks also to Marlene Harrison, our exhibition manager, for her brilliance at managing logistics and for getting the show on the road. The Outwin American Portraiture Today is the result of our triennial Outwin Boochever Portrait Competition, which was established through the generosity of Virginia Outwin Boochever. I will tell you about the competition and the show that derives from it in a minute, but before that, let me tell you about Mrs. Boochever. Virginia Outwin Boochever believed in the power of art, and specifically of portraiture, to connect us all. She was a docent at the National Portrait Gallery for almost 20 years, and visitors delighted in her knowledge of our collection and the people it portrays. Before volunteering at the Portrait Gallery, she had a very active life, living in many international cities as a diplomatic spouse. She and her husband, Louis C. Boochever Jr., lived in Belgrade, Paris, and Rome, among other cities. And everywhere they went, Mrs. Boochever took pleasure in learning about the local art and culture. During her time with us, Mrs. Boochever realized that unlike the portrait museums of England and Australia, the National Portrait Gallery of the United States did not have its own portrait competition. And so she gave the museum an endowment to establish one. The first iteration opened in 2006, just a few months after Mrs. Boochever's demise. The show you are seeing is the result of the 5th triennial competition. As part of the competition, prizes are awarded. The first prize receives $25,000 and the opportunity to create a commissioned portrait for the museum. In 2016, Amy Sherrill was the first woman and the first African-American artist to win the competition, and former First Lady Michelle Obama chose her to paint her official commissioned portrait. And this is to show how the competition really has catapulted the careers of many artists and how it has really reinvigorated the art of portraiture. It has had a very big impact. This past year, we had the honor of awarding the first prize to the first Latino artist, Hugo Crosswade, who will be with us today. Today, the competition and the show that derives from it are some of the major contemporary art events in the nation, and we are deeply grateful to Mrs. Boochever for her transcendent gift and to the Outwin and Boochever families for securing her legacy. So how does the competition work? Well, every 3 years, the Portrait Gallery assembles a jury panel of 4 outside art experts in different areas of art. If I can have the next slide, please. Usually we have 2 artists, a critic, and a curator. Ideally, we like to find a combination of jurors that reflects different regions of the country, different communities, different artistic media. Those 4 outside jurors join the 3 staff members from the Portrait Gallery in jurying the thousands of entries submitted online. And you have here the jurors of the 2019 portrait competition. Byron Kim, who's a conceptual artist and critic, senior critic at Yale School of Art. Lauren Haynes, curator of contemporary art at the Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas. Harry Gamboa Jr., co-director of the program in photography and media at CalArts and a very important photographer and performance artist as well. And Jefferson Pinder, who is artist and professor of sculpture and contemporary practices at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. The jurors from our staff were Brandon Brame-Fortune, our former chief curator who recently retired, Dorothy Moss, director of the competition and curator of painting and sculpture, and also coordinating curator of the Smithsonian's American Women's History Initiative, and myself. Once the jury is selected, we launch a national call for entries that invites artists to submit their recently created portraits online. At every iteration of the competition, we review the rules to make sure that they are conducive to representing the current ways in which artists are engaging with portraiture. We don't want to stand in the way of creativity. So in this past iteration, this last turn, we departed from an outdated policy that required that the artworks be the direct the result of a direct encounter between the artists and the people portraying them. And that opened the door to submissions that look back at forgotten figures in American history, forgotten chapters, or new reinterpretations of American history. We also invited artists to make work that reflected their socio-political context. To be clear, that had been, we had many works before that reflected on the current socio-political context, but we had never explicitly put, welcomed that in the entry rules. And I think that had a very important impact in reassuring artists that we absolutely support their looking at the contemporary context. Coincidentally, it turns out that today we are launching the call for entries for the next portrait competition in 2022. So if you are a portraiture artist, we encourage you to check out our website at portraitcompetition.si.edu and to submit your work. Next slide, please. We received 2,675 entries from every state of the United States, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. And of those, the jury chose 46 finalist artworks. And you can see the distribution of media and of locations where the artists are based there on this slide. The jury awards a first prize, which I already mentioned, a second and a third prize, and several commendations as well. All of the prizes are monetary, and the first prize gets the opportunity to create a commissioned work for our museum. If I can have the next slide, please. And this is the entire list of all the finalists and where they all hail from. And if I can have the next slide, please. And the next two slides, this one and the next one, which you can see in a moment, yes, are some pictures of what happens behind the scenes on the final jury day. We have several rounds of jurying. And for the last one, we bring the semi-finalist works to an undisclosed location here in Washington, D.C. The jurors come from the places where they live. They fly here, and we look at the work in person. We discuss it. We talk about technique. We talk about what the artist wants to convey and whether it's effectively conveyed. And it's an absolutely thrilling process. It's intense. Intellectually and aesthetically, and it's an incredible experience. Something fascinating that happens in the process of during the competition and of curating the show is that the themes that the major issues that the nation is grappling with come to the surface, and we see them reflected in the art. And we see how artists are trying to process them through portraiture. The resulting show that you will see in the Moore Museum is absolutely stunning. It's full of very compelling works. For reasons of time, I will highlight only today the prize-winning works, which offer a microcosm of the themes that are prevalent in the show. But to tell you more broadly, some of those themes are immigration, Black Lives Matter, the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow, the sacrifice of members of the military, the status of the American worker, the experiences of LGBTQ people, and the vulnerability and resilience of our youth. We are very lucky, as I said this morning, to have Hugo Crosswade, our first prize winner, and he will speak about his work in a moment. If we can have the next slide, I will only mention that this is a still from the first prize, from the work that won the first prize, I'm sorry, a portrait of Berenice Sarmiento Chavez by Hugo Crossweight. And this is a wonderful stop motion drawing animation that recounts the story of a young Mexican woman who migrated to the United States, went through a series of dangerous experiences to be eventually deported to her hometown, to Tijuana, where Hugo Crossweight met her and she told him her story. While she had a very precarious life while migrating to the United States and living here, when Hugo encountered her, the allure of the American dream had not lost its power. And so he honored that story and her experiences by creating this beautiful animation that's very powerful for many reasons. And for me, one of the most potent reasons is the wonderful congruence that there is between the story that the animation tells us and the artistic technique of animated drawing, which the artist leaves very open for our eyes to see. You know, he takes us by the hand as he makes the drawing and modifies each of those drawings that make up the scenes of her life account, her immigration account. And the soundtrack is also very evocative. He will tell you about that in a moment. Next slide, please. The second prize winner was photographer Sam Coleman with his photograph Jesus Cera, Dishwasher. This work graces the cover of our exhibition catalog, and it portrays Jesus Cera, a dishwasher at Sam Coleman's local bakery, at the center of his professional domain amidst that forest of stainless steel utensils of a commercial kitchen with an apron and his gaze slightly upwards. The work irradiates dignity, and it is part of Sam Coleman's series, Working America, in which he follows a tradition of 20th century photographers like August Sander and Irving Penn to pay homage to the multicultural immigrant American workforce of his native Los Angeles. Next slide, please. The third prize for the first time was a tie. And so we had that tie is divided between the works of Wade Mcintosh and Richard Green. This painting by Wade Mcintosh is titled Legacy, and it portrays his friend Jordan Castile, who is a fellow portraitist known for her sensitive and expressive portraits of African-American men. Through the objects in the painting, the plant, the conceptual flag in the background, the African-American flag of David Hammons that stands outside the Student Museum in Harlem, the photograph in the back. Wade Mcintosh connects his friend Jordan Castile to the history of civil rights struggle in her family. The black and white photograph in particular behind her is of her grandfather, Whitney Young Jr., who was executive director of the National Urban League and helped organize the March on Washington. And so the artist, Wade Mcintosh, is very interested in how, when portraying, when making his portraits, the context where the sitter is portrayed can add to the general idea of the personality and the essence of that portrayed person. If I can have the next slide, please. This, the other third prize winner is a photograph titled Monroe, Louisiana by Richard Green. Richard Green is known as a fiddle master, but photography has been a passion all through his life. He took this photograph during a cross-country trip. He lives in Los Angeles, but he was driving through the town of Monroe in Louisiana on a Wednesday afternoon, and he noticed these kids doing what kids do, having a great time, playing around, and he asked them if he could take a photograph of them, and they started posing for the camera. The portrait is full of youth, energy, and spunkiness, and it's a very joyful image and very dynamic. Next slide, please. The commended artists are Lauren Hare with this photograph titled Secrets, a photographic portrait exploring the interiority of a young woman. Next slide, please. Adrian Octavius Walker with his photograph Black Virgin Mary, which explores ideas and traditions of beauty among African American men and the sense of kinship they give, but also how they are perceived outside of that community. And next slide, please. And this self-portrait video by Natalia Garcia Clark, which is framed by the question, how many steps will it take me to disappear from your perspective? And then the artist comes into the picture with our back to us and walks away from us into the distance. This is a video that asks us to consider how we exist in relation to each other, how it's necessary for us to see the other in order to understand them. To conclude, this is an exhibition where artists use portraiture to shine a light on those who have been historically marginalized. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the People's Choice Award, a very important prize and a wonderful one too, because this is a prize where we invite our visitors to vote for their favorite portrait once the exhibition is on view. And my apologies for skipping it in my remarks. But the artist who won the People's Choice Award this year was Adal, also known as Adal Maldonado, photographer from Puerto Rico. And this is his image, Muerto Rico, from the series Puerto Ricans Underwater, or Los Ahogados, the drowned ones. This is a series where he photographs friends and acquaintances of his in his bathtub underwater. And originally, the series was a way for Adal to allude to the suffocation, to the feeling of suffocation that the economic crisis that has been 10 years going in Puerto Rico has the general state of mind and financial state of the island. However, after Hurricane Maria, it became even more poignant, and of the precariousness of the pressure that people are under. And this particular photograph is of the person lying in the bathtub has a t-shirt that says Muerto Rico, which means dead Rico instead of Puerto Rico. That alludes to that feeling of suffocation and to that has very the idea of pessimism very much out there. At the same time, the red scarf around the face of the sitter perhaps alludes to uprising and a struggle to fight together against that collective uprising. So in conclusion, I want to say that the show is full of wonderful portraits that I think everyone will enjoy. This is an exhibition where artists are using portraiture to shine a light on those who have been historically marginalized. And they do so by portraying them with dignity, with humanity, to elicit from us empathy and not pity. And now I have the pleasure to introduce you to Hugo Crossweight, our first prize winner, who will tell you about his wonderful portrait of Berenice Sarmiento Chavez. I think we're having a problem with the sound.
Hello? Hello?
Can we play the video again? I think
Oh,
we had a problem with the sound.
yeah.
We were not hearing the sound.
Mm.
Okay, sorry, we're having some technical issues here. It looks like I promise we rehearsed this on Friday and it was working. So, but in the meantime, I think, let me see. Yeah, okay. It looks like we're having some technical issues. Hugo, if you could describe what is the sound of the video, please?
Sure, sure. Well, I'm very happy to be here, to be part of this exhibition. And yes, I want to talk just briefly about this piece that I presented for this competition. It's part of a series of videos that I've been working on for the past almost 5 years, and it's this attempt to collect stories from the border. I'm a Tijuana, San Diego artist, and part of my practice has been to sit in downtown Tijuana and just, with my sketchbook, and I would just, draw people and just draw the experience of Tijuana, the native city where I was born, but I've been living in the United States for many years. And when I came back to Tijuana to visit family, I would always feel this, when you're outside of your home, that's when you start thinking about where you come from and the origins where you come from. So then I started doing this series of drawings of just be sitting there in the city, drawing people. And then of course, thanks to the beauty of art, when people see you, that you're working, that you're drawing, then this conversation starts to happen. People will come up to me and they will tell me their stories. And 4 years ago, I met Berenice Sarmiento Chavez. It was this person who came up to me and I showed her my sketchbook and she started telling me her story. And her story was an incredible story about her crossing the border into the United States, getting into trouble, then at some point getting deported, and how she was still dreaming about returning to the United States. And when I heard her story, it had a lot of elements of fantasy, perhaps exaggeration, but I also felt that it held a lot of truths about the immigrant experience of the trials and tribulations that people have when they cross the border into the United States, and this American dream that they have, that they think that when they cross, they'll do anything to get into this illusion of an American dream. And in particular, it spoke a lot about the violence that is prevalent against women in the Mexico-United States border. So I decided to do this stop motion drawing animation, which is basically me just being in front of a piece of paper, and then I would just start a drawing and start taking pictures little by little, and just sort of creating this or improvising this narrative on a white page where the whole story of Berenice just develops through 5 drawings. But it was a series of almost 1,200, 1,200 photographs that came together to create the stop motion drawing animation. So then once I had the whole video, the video and the drawings finished, I was thinking about, well, what could be the soundtrack that would go with this stop motion drawing animation. So then again, one day I was taking El Colectivo, the public bus, to the border. And this woman boarded the bus with her guitar. Her name was Rosa. And she started playing the guitar. She was playing for money. She was playing for spare change. And when I heard her voice, it was something that just blew me away. She had this very strong, almost manly voice, and she was strumming her guitar very intensely, and she didn't know how to play the guitar, but she was just strumming it, and it was like very monotonal. So then I remember I heard her voice, and I thought, this is an incredible voice. I needed to record it. So then I grabbed my iPhone and just put the recorder on, and I think I had like $30 in my pocket at that moment. So then I gave her the $30 and I said, could you please sing something for me? And I want to record you. So then sure, she was excited to get the $30, and she just started playing a song. And that's the song that you're hearing in the video. And of course, her voice, the intensity of her voice, and then the strumming of her guitar. At first, I couldn't recognize what melody it was because it had no melody. But I recognized the lyrics, and the lyrics were, it's a song called Bohemio de Afición, Bohemian by Hobby. It's a song written by Martin Urrieta, and it's a very manly song, a very machista song. It's about this man that has, like a lot of affairs, a lot of women, and he's like a very, easygoing kind of free spirit. But the fact that it was Rosa singing this, the power of her voice and the strength and the bravado in her voice to be encapsulated precisely the bravery that's behind Berenice Sarmiento's story, or her experience of many women, of many migrants that crossed the United States, that crossed the Mexico border into the United States for an American dream. So then I was very happy to have this opportunity to speak to Berenice, to tell her story, and then to have the music that came into this video and create this stop motion drawing animation. So I'm very happy to be part of this exhibition, and I'm not there in person, but I'm there in spirit, and also Berenice's story is there, and she's there also. So thank you
so much, Hugo. Thank you. And now we will share the video, the stop motion animation. Oh my goodness, it's asking me to put on my password. My apologies, a second for this. I'm sorry, my computer is freezing. My apologies for that. Is it? Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Taína, and thank you so much to Hugo for sharing these fascinating and powerful insights with all of us here today. My name is Maggie North, and I'm the Curator of Art here at the Springfield Museums. In addition to expressing gratitude to our outstanding panelists, I want to thank all of the attendees who joined us today, either virtually or in person, and thank you for bearing with us through a few technical difficulties. We hope that you'll return to the museums to explore the Outwin American Portraiture Today, as well as to view our complimentary exhibition, This Is Us, Regional Portraiture Today. Inspired by the National Portrait Gallery's competition, the Springfield Museums have decided to announce our own ongoing regional call for portraiture that is open to artists of all ages residing here in the Connecticut River Valley and in nearby Hartford County. We have already received numerous outstanding submissions to the call for portraiture, including the work that I believe is being seen on this slide, Sandra, by Win Dromey of Longmeadow, Massachusetts. We so look forward to sharing additional works in This Is Us when the exhibition opens on October 24th. And at this time, I'll be teaming up with Paige Moreau, our courses coordinator and webinar extraordinaire, to take questions from our audiences. Paige will begin with a few of the questions that have come in through our Q&A chat box online.
So at this moment, we don't have any questions just posted yet. So if anybody who is joining us via Zoom, if you want to use the Q&A function down at the bottom of your screen and pose a question to Maggie or any of the other panelists, we would be happy to read them aloud. And then also if there are any questions coming in on YouTube, we would be happy to take those as well.
Great. And perhaps in the meantime, if there are any questions from those here with us physically, please feel free to raise your hand. I'll repeat your question so that those virtually can hear it as well. Sure, in the back.
The question's for Hugo. Can you hear me okay? So I'm wondering, just two parts. One is, has he seen the woman again that he created this piece about? Does she know who created it? Either the woman in the piece or the woman who was singing. And then also, what does it signify and mean to him to have been selected out of 2,600 entries for this honor?
Absolutely. So this question is for Hugo Crosswade. And the question is, Hugo, have you seen Berenice or the woman who sang the song that's in the video? Have you had contact with either of those people since the video was created? And there's also a second part to the question. What does it mean to you to have been selected from over 2,000 entries to this portrait competition?
Yes, unfortunately, I do not know where Berenice is. The only time that I ever spoke to her was this interview that I had with her 4 years ago when I was drawing with my sketchbook. We were sitting in the street, and after she told me her story, she went away, and I came home, and I had her story in my mind for many years. And I think I met her like in 2013. And it wasn't until 2018 that I started doing this whole series of videos that was about a recapitulation of the stories that I had heard. And I remembered Berenice's story just came up to me, and I started doing this video of her particular story. But yes, I have not heard from Berenice. I don't know where she is. I hope she's well. And then even Rosa, also the musician who boarded the bus. I've taken the bus I take the bus to the border many times, and I haven't seen her also. So I hope she's well. And well, yes, I was very happy and surprised to have won this award. I was extremely, flabbergasted. First of all, I'm not a good portraitist. Like I'm a good draftsman, but I'm not the best portraitist. So then my attempt to submit when I read the outline of this exhibition and how they had opened it up where it could also be a conceptual portrait, I thought, well, yes, I could be a portrait artist, because to me, what I wanted to present was a new way of presenting portraiture, not necessarily the likeness of a person, but how we as people are comprised by our stories. Berenice's story, it could be real, it could be false, it could be exaggeration, but it still held universal truths about her situation and about who she was. And then this was also how she wanted to present herself to me. I don't even know if Berenice is her real name, but as we were sitting there in a public space on the street, me drawing and she telling me her story, this is the way she wanted to present herself. And the way she presented herself was as a very heroic person, a person who went through these huge trials and tribulations, crossing the border, got into trouble, got deported, and was fighting back to return into the United States. And sometimes the story that we tell ourselves, the story that we tell others, that's the way we present ourselves. That's our facade, that's our portrait. So it was this gratuitous moment where I was able to speak to her. She told me her story, and then I wanted to share that story with the public. So I was very happy to win this award and have this opportunity to do this.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from our in-person audience? Sorry, repeat that?
How is it that Springfield Museums was chosen to debut this latest round of Smithsonian?
Sure. So when the Springfield Museums heard, the question is, how was the Springfield Museums chosen to debut the tour of the Outwin American Portraiture Today? When we heard that the Outwin American Portraiture Today would be going on tour, our wonderful Director of Art Museums, Heather Haskell, immediately reached out to contacts at the Smithsonian. And I believe, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but really a great union of good timing and a desire on both the part of our museum and the Smithsonian to build on this wonderful relationship that we have had with the Smithsonian by bringing the Outwin to the Springfield Museum. So we're so pleased to have it here, and we're absolutely honored to be the first on the tour, the first venue on the tour.
Maggie, if you don't have another in-person question right now, I do have an online question. Besides his own, what is Hugo's favorite portrait in the exhibition? So I guess we can turn that over to Hugo.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, what is your favorite portrait in the exhibition besides your own?
Oh, well, it's hard. It's hard to decide. There were so many artists that I knew of their work, that I admired. And when I was there at the Smithsonian and I saw artists that I recognized from art magazines and many other places, I was really, I was blown away just to be in the company of all these great artists. I can't really say if there's one particular portrait, because I think the beauty of this exhibition is precisely that it shows all these different techniques, all these different ways of presenting portraiture, from the most traditional to the most conceptual. So I felt I loved all of them precisely because they show this different facets of how we can present ourselves to a public. So yes, it's hard to say.
That's all I have at the moment for online questions.
Are there any other online questions that
No,
have come in?
that's all I have at the moment for online questions. So if you have any other in-person questions.
I actually have a question. This is a question for Taína, but Hugo, please chime in if you would like to as well. One of the things that really strikes me as I walk through the exhibition is the expanding nature of portraiture itself. Often we think of portraits as paintings of another person, often sort of bust up and in a vertical format. But this exhibition proves that portraiture is much broader than that and continues to expand to a variety of media. And I wondered, Taína, how that has struck you as you have seen so many portraits that have come in through this call, and where you see the genre of portraiture going next.
Thank you, Maggie. That's a wonderful question, and it builds up on what Hugo also was just saying, how he was describing the show. I agree with both of you that the wonderful thing about the exhibition is how its expansive definition of portraiture as a genre. So very often we think about portraiture in a very conservative way. Portraiture is a genre that has traditionally been there to cement the elite, right? It's a genre that has often existed to reinforce the power of people who already have it, financially or socially. And so it is very often when we think about it, we think, as you said, Maggie, of traditional media too, of painting, of oil painting in particular, of sculpture. And here we have artists really thinking about it in very inventive ways, and building on its tradition to do things that have not been done with that tradition before, to express new ideas, to portray people who have traditionally been at the margins. I find the exhibition just incredibly surprising, and I'm blown away by the creativity of artists across the nation. And I think that artists are you know, I'm marveled. I marvel at how artists are able to burst, you know, the constraints of tradition in order to reinvent it. And I think that's something that will continue as time goes on. And I think the portrait competition itself, the Outwin Boochever Portrait Competition, is a great platform to fostering that creativity and to sustaining it, supporting it. So we're very proud of the Portrait Gallery of being able to be that kind of platform, while at the same time, through our museum having traditional examples, many of them, of portraiture, right, through our permanent collection. It's, when you visit our museum, there's a wonderful dialogue. Every time the competition is, the show deriving from the competition is up, there's this wonderful dialogue between what artists are doing now and what artists were doing in the past century or 2 centuries ago. So it's absolutely wonderful and very, just a thrilling thing to experience.
Thank you. And if there are any other questions, either online or in person, I think we have time for probably one more question.
Still nothing online, Maggie, but yeah, if anything in person, you can go ahead and take it away.
Well, we certainly invite those of you who are here with us in person to remain in the gallery space and explore this fantastic exhibition for yourselves. And it is nearing the end of our program, so I want to thank everybody, the attendees, the panelists, for joining us either virtually or in person today. And we hope that you will come back again soon. We wish you a wonderful Monday, and again, thank you to everybody who is here and helped to coordinate this press conference today.